Hello and welcome to Forever Friday. Today I'd like to share another One Piece theory with you all. There are many mysteries surrounding the One Piece world, but one of the most elusive is the nature of the ancient weapons. Throughout the story, we have been told small inklings as to what exactly these three weapons are, but we still do not know the big picture. In this video, I would like to review what we do know about the ancient weapons and offer an idea about the nature of one in particular. This will allow us to better understand them all as a whole. The first time we hear about these weapons is in the Alabasta arc. Here, Crocodile specifically states that his intentions in Alabasta is to find the ancient weapon Pluton. He then goes on to explain that it had the ability to destroy or vaporize an entire island. Later in the arc, Crocodile and Robin find Alabasta's poneglyph underground. And although Robin lies to Crocodile, she later explains that the poneglyph was all about the ancient weapon Pluton. However, we do not get any more details. After Alabasta, we do not get any more information on the ancient weapons until the end of Skypiea, where we learn that there are actually three ancient weapons and that Poseidon is in Fishman Island. However, it is in Water 7 that we get the most amount of information on one weapon in particular. In chapter 344, we are told that Pluton is a battleship that was created in ancient times, and that the blueprints of the ship are passed down by the shipwrights of Water 7. In fact, this whole arc's theme seems to be centered around Pluton and ships, but we'll get back to this later. Finally, in Fishman Island, we get the most amount of information on Poseidon, and possibly the most amount of information on the ancient weapons as a whole. Here we learn that Poseidon is an ancient mermaid princess that possesses the ability to control the Sea Kings, as well as the fact that this individual is reborn every couple hundred years. This is basically all the information that we know about the weapons so far, and when it comes to the third, Uranus, other than the name and a few fan theories, we don't really have much to go on. It's now after reviewing what we do know, I'd like to go over a few things. First of all, it seems strange to me that the only weapons that we know about are a living, breathing mermaid princess and a ship. But what if the two aren't just that? Perhaps all three ancient weapons have more to them than we think. Let's look at Poseidon specifically. Poseidon is the title assigned to this specific mermaid princess. However, the princess is not exactly the destructive force here. The Sea Kings are. If we view it like this, the weapon has two aspects that make it what it is. You could view it as the Sea Kings as the mechanism and the Mermaid Princess as the key to unlocking the potential of the weapon. Perhaps we should view the other weapons as having this mechanism and key relationship as well. For instance, let me propose a hypothetical idea. A common theory is that Momonosuke is the weapon Uranus because he can control Zunisha like Shirahoshi controls the Sea Kings. This too follows the method of the key and mechanism relationship, with Momonosuke, another reborn royal, being the key and Zunisha being the mechanism. Now then, what about Pluton? After all, we already know that it is a battleship. Well, it is here that I'd like to make my main point of the video. What if we think of the battleship as just the mechanism of the weapon? Perhaps it needs a key to unlock its full potential. Maybe, without this key, it can't activate the ship's weapons, or perhaps the ship has a mystical ability to sink islands. But what could this key be? I'd like to go back to what I was saying about the Water 7 arc. Earlier, I said that the Water 7 arc was highly focused on Pluton and ships in general. In fact, the main reason why the Straw Hats are there is to repair their own ship, the Going Merry. It is in this arc that we learn quite a bit about the nature of ships in the One Piece world. Particularly, one thing that we learn about ships in the One Piece world is that some can develop a fairy or a spirit known as a Klabautermann under certain conditions. Now, in Water 7 and Enies Lobby, we see that the Mary has such a spirit, but curiously, we never see the existence of any other Klabautermann in the series. I, for one, find this odd, but perhaps it might be the case that Oda is saving this for a later reveal. After all, wouldn't it just make sense that the most infamous ship in the One Piece world has a Klabautermon? In fact, Pluton being mentioned as a ship was stated in chapter 344, and the Klabautermon was brought up in chapter 351. And although they're just a few chapters apart, they play out like they're the very next scene. Therefore, it might be very likely that the battleship is the mechanism, and that the ship's Klabautermon is the key. But that then brings up some questions. Where are they? Is the Klabautermon with the ship? Is there something even more to it than this? Well, I say we look at the other weapons to find the answer. Like I said, the key to Poseidon is the mermaid princess who is reborn every couple hundred years. And considering the hypothetical, Momo is the key to Uranus, being a possible reincarnation of a previous holder of the power, likely from the Kozuki clan. What if this Klabautermon works the same way? Perhaps this spirit of the ship takes on a similar physical form as well, and like the others, it reincarnates. But then, where is this individual? And who is it? Well, upon reviewing the story, there are two locations that relate to Pluton, these being Water 7, where the ship was built, and Alabasta, where it was first mentioned. Off the bat, Water 7 seems like an unlikely location. This is because it seems widely known by certain parties, like the world government, that Water 7 was the birthplace of Pluton. As such, there always seems to be government agents poking around Water 7 that would likely have found something more than just the location of the blueprints. Secondly, it doesn't make much sense to me to have the ship or the spirit in the same location as the blueprints that were kept as a countermeasure. Switching to Alabasta, I think there are some good points that could be made that it is here. First of all, Crocodile. Crocodile had spent many years planning to obtain Pluton with the help of Baroque works, following many leads and even enlisting the help of Robin, who would have been the only person alive to know the foreknowledge of the poneglyphs. All that led Crocodile to Alabasta, and not once did he even consider to go to Water 7. In fact, being a warlord and having Robin's knowledge, it is quite hard to believe that Crocodile would not have known about Water 7's history with Pluton. And yet he still staked it all on Alabasta. But we never did see Pluton in Alabasta, and Robin still has not revealed the details of Alabasta's poneglyph. I for one find it unlikely that the battleship Pluton is buried under the sands of Alabasta, but that could be the case. But perhaps the writing on Alabasta's poneglyph was not about the location of the ship, but rather the location of the Klabautermon. And like I said, maybe this Klabautermon works in a similar way to the spirit of Poseidon. Maybe this spirit is reborn every so often in the line of an important family. Maybe this spirit is reborn in Alabasta, in the royal line of the Nefertari family. And if that's the case, then I think the most likely identity of this being is Nefertari Vivi. Now, some of you might feel that this is not the case, and you might need more evidence that Vivi is this entity. You might even say that there is no evidence that Vivi has displayed any supernatural powers like the other two weapons. There are a few things that I'd like to point out about this. First of all, I'd like to turn your attention to Vivi's speech at the end of Alabasta in chapter 216. It is in this speech that Vivi talks about her adventure and how she met a certain ship, the Going Merry. In her speech, she refers to the ship as if it were a person, and even says that it spoke to her. Now, obviously in this moment, Vivi is being poetic, and doesn't literally mean that the ship spoke to her. But to me, I find it highly likely that this is something that Oda could have placed there to serve as a piece of foreshadowing. After all, this is essentially Vivi, who is the Klabautermon of Pluton, talking about the Going Merry, which is the only ship we know of to have a Klabautermon. But I do stipulate that this is more of a poetic coincidence by Oda. However, I think that the most likely evidence that shows Vivi possessing a special ability comes from chapter 210. Chapter 210 is the chapter when Crocodile is defeated, and afterwards the rain falls, and the fighting stops. Due to this, we assume that the rain starts to fall when Crocodile is defeated and no longer able to dry out the air. But that's not exactly how it is framed. Actually, when Crocodile is defeated, the fighting still continues. It is not until Vivi shouts out "Stop fighting" that the first drop falls. The way that it is shown, it's as if Vivi summoned the rain. This occurrence of sudden rain is even noted as odd in chapter 212, when Hina accuses Smoker of using dance powder to start the rain. It is clear that the appearance of the rain at this moment is almost as unnatural as it is coincidental. In fact, if you look at how the panel of Vivi screaming is drawn, it is very similar to how Shirahoshi is drawn when she first summons the Sea Kings, unlocking her power.
Perhaps an added ability of the spirit of Pluton is to summon rain or control water. This could have actually already been stated as an ability of Pluton. After all, when Pluton is brought up, it's usually described as having the ability to destroy an island. However, the word destroy is sometimes replaced with other words, like vaporize, or more interestingly, sink. If Pluton has the ability to control water, then it is likely to believe that it could easily sink an island. And perhaps we have already seen the effects of this. After all, let's just look back at the birthplace of the battleship Pluton. One detail of the island of Water 7 is that it is constantly struck by the yearly storm of Aqua Laguna, which is slowly sinking the island. Perhaps, in the past, this Aqua Laguna was summoned by Pluton. Maybe this was an unfortunate side effect of its creation, or maybe the storm was intentionally summoned to punish the creators of the weapon. Whatever the case, this is quite an interesting coincidence. I would like to conclude with how I think Pluton was created. In the Void Century, the force that would eventually become the world government and the Ancient Kingdom fought a large war that would determine the fate of the world. In this period, there were two ancient weapons that worked with this key and mechanism relationship. Among all this, you have Water 7, that could have acted as a neutral party, that perhaps provided both sides with ships and weaponry. However, maybe they felt the need to protect themselves, or maybe one of the sides commissioned the creation of a weapon. Whatever the case, the shipwrights of Water 7 constructed their own ancient weapon by building their battleship. But something was missing. While they had the mechanism, they still lacked the key to fully make it an ancient weapon. It's then that the Nefertari family of Alabasta comes in. Now interestingly, we do know that the Nefertari family was part of the world government back in the Void Century, as they were part of the 20 original kings. But it is also clear that Alabasta sympathized with the Ancient Kingdom, as they kept a poneglyph hidden, and Alabasta does contain some sun imagery associated with the Ancient Kingdom. Perhaps they joined the world government, but were disgusted by their methods, and retroactively sided with the remnants of the Ancient Kingdom after the war. However, I feel like it's more likely that Alabasta always sided with the Ancient Kingdom, and that they were supposed to play the role of a double agent against the world government. Whatever the case, it seems like they were playing both sides. It is then that the Nefertari family came into contact with the shipwrights of Water 7. Then I believe that the Nefertari family and the battleship attuned to one another somehow. And in this moment, the Nefertari line merged with the Klabautermann of Pluton, and a system of reincarnation was established, like that of the other ancient weapon, Poseidon. This is essentially the bulk of my theory and overall explanation of how I think the ancient weapons work. I believe as a result of this, Vivi will be a monumentally important character going forward, and hopefully she will join back up with the Straw Hats soon. This could also play into what her goal might be at the end of the series, as she might desire to topple the system of the world government along with the Straw Hats. But for now, that's all I have. Goodbye for now, and have a great Friday.